Hi guys, welcome to another session. So here in this video, we are going to start with Emile Durkheim and we will discuss the theory of social facts. Okay. So introduction part is very important. So whenever you start with Durkheim, what you need to do is you can simply say Durkheim is regarded as the founding father of modern sociology. So make it very clear, founding father of modern sociology. In Weber also you can write the same. And when we talk about Auguste Comte, that's when you talk about father of sociology. So here founding father of or father of modern sociology. Okay, both in case of Durkheim and in case of Weber, you can write that. And you can say Durkheim is the first true sociologist. Okay, and you can say he gave distinctive sociological explanation and providing that, scientific legitimacy, that initial acceptance, initial scientific legitimacy to the discipline. So distinctively sociological explanation. And his primacy, like, or his concern is mainly to establish sociology as a science based on positivist principles. So he gave emphasis to macro. He used a positivist approach. So all those we have already discussed when we discussed the scope of sociology. And then he gave importance to objectivity. He gave importance to quantification and general laws. Right, all these something which you can mention briefly in the introduction, like he's a father of modern sociology, distinctive sociological explanation, wanted to make it similar, a scientific discipline, and stressed on objectivity, general laws, right? So these are initial points you can mention, and you can also talk about his influence. He was influenced by Comte, Spencer, and even Adam Smith also because of division of labor theory. You will understand that. And he emphasized on the social order that can be maintained through collective and moral regulation. So that we will be seeing in multiple theories as well. Okay, so now let's also briefly talk about the context. So if you get a question, one, two line about the intro, then the context, that's when things will be set very clearly, right? So Durkheim wrote during the late 19th century, and that time, if you see, France was undergoing social transformation, especially after French Revolution. So industrialization and democracy were producing social chaos at that point of time. When we talked about the emergence of sociology, there also I discuss the same. And if you look at Durkheim's intellectual goal, it's mainly to establish that social order or the maintenance of social order. So if you see why he is more concerned about social order and all those, it's mainly because of the context in which he is writing. When Parson and Morton came in 1940s, that's a different context, right? World War II is over, and welfare states established everywhere. So the context is entirely different. Here, the context is entirely different. And he also believed universal laws of societies are possible, and sociology could function like natural science, where you can make general laws and you can explain things in general way also, right? And you have seen multiple theories, division of labor. Social facts is something which we will discuss. That's where entire his understanding relied upon. And then we will see religion, we will see suicide, multiple theories we'll see. So let's understand, why he is giving significance or importance, or Durkheim theory is significant mainly for two reasons. First, he defines the scope of sociology that we have seen in the first chapter, second topic, scope of sociology. So what is sociology? Sociology is nothing but the study of social facts. So that's how he defined the uh, subject matter. So what is scope of sociology? Scope of sociology is studying social facts. At the same time, he demonstrated a scientific methodology for studying them, and that is given in Rules of Sociological Method. You need to write the year also, 1895. So, why his theory of social fact is significant? Mainly, he defines the scope of sociology, scope and nature of sociology, and he also demonstrated a scientific methodology to study that. And what is the definition of social fact? So, sociology is for studying social fact. So, scope of sociology is defined. Now, let's try to define what is social fact. Very important definition. You need to write exactly the same way. Social facts are the ways of acting, thinking, and feeling. So, social facts are the ways of acting, thinking, the way you act, the way you think, the way you feel, which are external to individual. These are some characteristics. So, what is social facts? It's nothing but the ways of acting, thinking, and feeling. Now, the characteristics which are external to individual and are endowed with a power of coercion by the reason of which they control him. So, it's external, and they have a coercive power because they have the capacity to control. So social facts are the ways of acting, thinking, and feeling, and it's external. It's external to me, and it is having a coercive influence over me. The actions that I take, the thinking that I have, the feelings that I have, all these are controlled by the social facts, and it's having a coercive influence over me. Let's look at some of the characteristics which you have seen in the definition itself. The first one, externality. So they exist outside the individual. So for Durkheim, social facts are sui generis, which means it comes into existence its own, and they have their own life, right? And it is independent of individual will, the personal will. For example, when we talk about family, religion, or law, all these coexist, before and beyond individual existence. So you can say all these are social facts. Social facts are sui generis. It comes into existence its own, and it's having its own life, right? The next one is the one which I have mentioned in the definition itself. That's the coercive influence. You can say constraint. So first characteristic is externality. Second is constraining influence. So they exercise a coercive influence over the individual. Individuals, we believe that we act upon our own individual free will. Whatever action we take, we have decided and we are taking it. But the individual's behavior basically conforms to the social expectations. You are getting married. You think that you are getting married, it's for you, but it's actually you are fulfilling the social expectation. Education, you are preparing for IAS. You think that you are motivated and you are doing it. That's exactly what Weber saying. But what Durkheim says is it's a social pressure and religion. So all these having a coercive influence over individual. Third one, it's generality. It's general in nature and they are common to all members of a group. So as a sociologist or sociology must study general social facts like religion as a whole and not individual variations like Hinduism or Islam. So sociology is not going to study specific aspects. Sociology should study general aspect. So when we study religion, we study religion as a whole. What's the function of religion rather than going and studying specific religion or their problems like Hinduism or Christianity, Islam, like that. So generality, externality, constraint, generality. Third one, again, I have discussed in the definition itself, independence. They exist independently of the individual will. So individual as individual, you cannot change or abolish them. So which means what? Durkheim was giving importance to society over individual, macro reality over micro level meanings, understandings, etc. So I hope it's very clear. Definition is very clear. The four characteristics also very clear. Now he has given certain rules also to study social facts. So if you remember in the beginning, I told you why this is significant is because he defined the scope of sociology and he also demonstrated how to study scientifically. So certain rules of studying social facts. So Durkheim formulated four key rules in his book, The Rules of Sociological Method, 1895. First one, rules of observation. See, this is again very important. He is telling that social facts should be considered as things. It it should be treated like physical objects, like things. So see, they are abstract. Though they are abstract, they can be objectively experienced through the collective representation, right? So there are certain symbols showing some existence. So when we talk about religion, it's abstract, but you need to treat religion as thing like physical object, then you can establish, study scientifically. But the collective representations will be there, right? A married woman, the sindoor will be there. For example, temples, mosque, or church, all these signify religion. So existence of this means existence of religion. Sindoor or Mangal Sutra, that signify marriage, right? So religion, these collective representation, marriage, these collective representation. So that reflects what Durkheim's concern for objectivity. When you're stressing on treat these abstract elements as things, that shows his concern towards objectivity. If you remember in social fact, when I defined or sociology as science, one of the topic, one of the condition was quantifiability. So I told you Durkheim, even the extreme abstract forms of social facts, he tried to quantify in terms of, consider this as things, as a physical object, like in science. The next one is rules of classification. So study classes of phenomena, not the isolated facts. So you identify the classes, for example, institutional versus non-institutional facts. So of course, that also include the morphological social facts, population, housing patterns, lifestyle, and all these will be there. So not individual instances, not micro, macro, not specific, general. So classes of phenomena, not isolated facts. I hope this is very clear. So you should be in a position to classify, right? When we talked about stratification also, not individual inequality you're studying strata, right? So that means a pattern of inequality. So here also you need to classify the classes of phenomena, not the isolated individual phenomena, not micro, macro, general, not specific. So classes of phenomena, not isolated ones. Third one, very important, you will see across Durkheimian theories, that's rules of distinction. So there should be a proper differentiation between normal and pathological social fact. So normal scenarios, there's a fact, religion in normal scenario, division of labor in normal scenario, suicide in normal scenario. And when the abnormality comes, that's the pathological form. So make a distinction between normal and pathology. Crime is normal to a certain extent. Excessive crime is pathological. Suicide is normal to a certain extent, but beyond a limit, it's pathological. So normal phenomena for Durkheim is functional, but pathological ones, that becomes dysfunctional. But that too, temporary dysfunction, we'll be discussing that in detail when we look at the theories. So differentiate between normal and pathological social fact. Cool. Now the next one, rules of explanation. This is again very important because this is the theory part. So explanation must be objective. It should be theoretical, and it should be generalizable. It should be testable, right? So it has to be objective. It has to be theoretical. It has to be generalizable. So use the causal functional analysis. And that's why when we studied Durkheim's division of labor, causal explanation, functional explanation. Religion, causal explanation, functional explanation. First, you identify the cause, then the function. Cause and function should not be the same. That lead to illegitimate teleology. So separate cause and function. That's one of the most important pillar of Durkheim's analysis, because it, reduces that illegitimate teleologies, and employ scientific methods. He have given enough methods. We will be seeing that, for example, statistical techniques in suicide. We'll be seeing indirect experiment in his theory of religion. Similarly, comparative analysis, multivariate analysis, etc. we'll be looking at. So rules of observation, rules of classification, rules of distinction, and rules of explanation. Quickly, let me talk about the relevance of Durkheim here. See, or this one, Durkheim's method that basically helped to transform sociology into a systematic scientific discipline. He gave multiple methods. He defined the scope of sociology. He demonstrated how can you scientifically study sociology, and the concepts like social facts, the normal pathological distinction, the causal functional analysis. So if you look at his theories, you'll be seeing causal explanation, functional explanation, normal scenario functions, and pathological scenario dysfunction. So these analyses are still central to sociological research. And his work basically influenced structural functionalism and modern empirical sociology. So all those we'll be discussing in the upcoming session. So what are the keywords that we discussed here? Positivism, objectivity, causal functionalism, society as sui generis, right? Collective representation. When we talked about rule of observation, social order, normal versus pathological, causal versus functional. Okay, all these are something which you need to keep in mind. Definition of social facts, 4 characteristics, 4 rules of studying social facts. Just keep that in mind. Very important. You get a question, it's very high scoring also. So see you guys in the next session. Thank you so much. If you're looking for any mentorship or classes or test series, get in touch with us. I see you there.